changing world. From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Issues of Faith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Issues of Faith. I am Ben Hall. Very good show today. We are talking about the popularity of the Pope. He was named Time Magazine's Man of the Year. You see him on magazine covers and other places. So we are very excited to have with us the Bishop of the Nashville Diocese, David Choby. Bishop David Choby, thank you very much for being with us.
Ben, thank you for the invitation.
So you are seeing the Pope everywhere.
Yes.
How do you explain the popularity that he seems to be enjoying?
I think what it is that he comes across very clearly as a man who loves to be with people. I had the opportunity to be in Rome in last October, and whenever a bishop is in Rome, normally they have the chance to meet the Pope for just a few minutes. And I noticed on that occasion, how personable, how approachable he is as an individual. And then to see him move around in the piazza out in front of St. Peter's, and he'll pick up children and bless married couples and things like that. In fact, I think when I was over there was a young couple from Nashville that had just gotten married, and they had the opportunity to meet him and receive a blessing from him. So there's this sense, he really is a people person, and that comes across. He's unassuming. I think his simplicity of lifestyle is very popular with people. So there's a lot of qualities that people find attractive.
You talk about his simplicity of lifestyle, and he, as I understand it, he turned down the normal quarters where the Pope generally lives, and took a much more, modest living space.
Yeah, I've been in those apartments. They are modest.
So it seems to me, if you ask me what is his primary message, it seems to be dealing with poverty. It seems to be getting back to the basics of what Jesus taught in a way, and he has somehow managed to avoid all of the controversial sort of stuff, and he's just talking. I think people like to hear talk about poverty, and then someone living a life like that, turning down elaborate quarters and simplicity.
Yeah, well, I think that's true to a large extent, but when you read some of the things that he's been writing lately, what is really clear is that he is very much committed to speaking about and promoting the value, the dignity of every human person. He's not by any means opposed to those who find themselves comfortable in life. He's not out to condemn the wealthy, but he sees wealth and material blessings providing an opportunity to make the lives of those who are poor and those who are not so successful make their lives better and easier. But I think at the heart of his writing, of his speaking, is the fact that he really does have a deep sense of the dignity of the person, which is something, too, that was a part of the pontificate of Pope John Paul II. And because of his concern about persons, his appreciation for persons, he speaks often of the poor.
Have you seen a change in the direction of the church in any way now that he is Pope as opposed to the last Pope? I mean, has he made some sort of big change in direction that you can identify?
No, not really. I think that his immediate effort is to make the offices that are part of the church's life more accessible and more responsive to the needs of people. In terms of teachings, in terms of discipline, I would not expect any significant changes in that regard, because from the Catholic perspective, if something's true, it's true, and you don't end up taking a a contradictory position. Something that the church appreciates and believes in can always be better understood or better articulated, but I would not expect significant changes from him in that sense.
And how unusual, how surprising was it, the whole living quarters thing? I think people really related to that. And maybe you can give us a better sense of the difference between what he would normally be in as Pope and what he has taken, since you've seen these rooms.
Yes.
And kind of take us through that.
Well, I've been both in the area that they call the Papal Apartments, which would be in an older section of the Vatican going back maybe even before 1500. And as you might expect, those rooms were very large, very high ceilings. The furniture would be antiques, so it would be obviously a residence that you would normally expect someone in his position to occupy. The rooms where he's living, actually, I think I stayed 1 year back in about 2004 in the very rooms where he's now living. The rooms are very sparse. There's a bed, a chair, a desk, and the floors are uncarpeted, adequate, but by no means luxurious.
And why do that? Why do you think he did that?
I think he did that probably for two reasons. One, because of his concern that the church reflect a concern for those who are poor. And not only does he want to say that and to teach that and to reflect that in his speeches and his talks, but he wants to reflect it in the way in which he lives. The other thing that I think that really is another major motivation for living where he lives is that he loves people. And he is in the middle of everyday life, in that particular place. He takes his meals with priests and bishops who stay in the particular building that he is staying in. He has Mass in that building. The public, or those who are staying there, can join him for Masses. So, but he really is a people person. It's very clear that he does not want to be put in a position where he is removed from or excluded from an opportunity to be with people.
Which, in these major leadership positions, is often what happens. Sometimes you almost can't help but be isolated and excluded and put in a bubble.
That's true.
If you look back at his life, if you look back at where he came from, where he was before he was Pope, would you have expected what you have seen from him? I mean, kind of his priorities and his popularity. Would you have expected this?
I think from what little bit I know about him when he was the Cardinal Archbishop of Buenos Aires, I would have expected that. And obviously, the cardinals who elected him to succeed Pope Benedict XVI, they knew the quality, the particular gifts that Pope Francis has, and the way in which he relates to people. So I think that they were aware, that this would be someone who would be very engaged with the world and very engaging himself, and welcoming people and being able to be comfortable in relating to people quite naturally.
Now, I'm not Catholic, so I'm looking at this kind of from the outside, but my view of him is someone who has put the emphasis on poverty, who has said, coming from Buenos Aires, lots of poverty there. That seems to be his primary focus, or what he's really focused on. Do you see that, first of all? Do you think that's the case? And is that something the church needs to kind of refocus on?
I definitely think that it's the case. Certainly, it's a good thing for us to be reminded that the church has to remain aware of and committed to the service of the poor. In one of his recent documents called The Joy of the Gospel, he remarks in one section, that before addressing individuals who are engaged in pastoral service to people, he wants to remark on the fact of what it is that we as a church do on a regular basis by way of health care, education, working with the poor, the homeless, and the like. But all is a way of reminding us, what it is that the church seeks to do, what the mission of the church is. And then if, for whatever reason, we might not be as enthusiastic or engaged in that work, to be reminded to kind of recharge our batteries in responding to the needs of the poor.
And how much does the Pope influence what we do in Nashville, influence the Nashville diocese, influence you and your daily work, and how much does that filter down to us here?
I think what this particular pontificate will accomplish, and the contribution that it will make locally, is that Pope Francis is giving all of us, bishops, priests, laity, kind of a vision for what the church is meant to be and the way in which the church is meant to respond. Obviously, he will depend upon each local expression of the church, a diocese as we call it. He will rely upon each local church to take his words, reflect upon them, and then use that vision in order to direct its activity. In fact, in that document that I just cited on the joy of the gospel, he makes that point, that as the Pope, he doesn't have answers to all of the world's problems, but he looks to the local bishop and the priests and the people of each diocese to respond to the opportunities that present themselves for service.
We're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what's happening here in the Nashville Diocese and just get kind of an update since you're here. It'd be great. We'll take a break, be back right after this.